In a social media post, Trump said, quote, "The August 1st deadline is the August 1st deadline. It stands strong and will not be extended."
President Trump announced a tariff extension for Mexico this morning, posting to social media, "We have agreed to extend for a 90-day period."
On July 31st, the White House stood firm. No country would get an extension. August 1st was the final cutoff. That's what the world was told. No delays, no exceptions. The U.S. would begin slapping 35% tariffs on goods from any nation that hadn't signed a new trade deal. But hours before the deadline, Trump changed his mind. Mexico got a 90-day extension. Canada didn't. This wasn't a small footnote. It revealed something deeper about how Trump's trade strategy is playing out and who it's really targeting.
Mexico is a very unique situation of all the other countries around the world because, of course, we share our southern border with Mexico.
The administration had spent weeks repeating that there would be no further delays. The tariffs were set in motion months ago and had already been pushed back once, from April to August. Officials said publicly that countries had time and the deadline would be enforced. But just before midnight, Trump suddenly spared Mexico. The reason? According to his spokesperson, Mexico is a unique case because of its shared southern border and recent cooperation on stopping drug and human trafficking. That framing sounds logical at first, but when Canada is brought into the picture, the logic starts to unravel. Canada also shares a long land border with the United States, over 5,500 miles, the longest undefended border in the world. The two countries are deeply tied through CUSMA, which still governs the majority of their trade. So why didn't Canada get the same 90-day grace period? Trump's team didn't offer a clear answer. What's clear, though, is that Canada wasn't even in the running for an exemption. Instead, the White House seemed focused on escalation. Just hours before tariffs took effect, Trump cited issues far outside trade, like Canada's recent recognition of Palestine, as a reason for breakdowns in negotiations. It had nothing to do with customs or commerce, and everything to do with politics. This wasn't about trade strategy, it was pressure politics, plain and simple. The same playbook Trump used on Brazil. Trump's decision to exempt Mexico wasn't rooted in a broader policy shift. It was a political calculation. While the administration framed it as a border issue, that logic crumbles under scrutiny. The U.S. has critical economic and security ties with Canada too, especially in energy. Canada supplies over 4 million barrels of oil per day to the U.S., according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, making it America's top foreign energy source by far. Yet no exemption was offered. The real difference? Mexico agreed not to retaliate. Canada didn't. Prime Minister Carney continued negotiations but refused to rush into a lopsided deal. And in Trump's world, standing firm doesn't earn you more time, it earns you a target.
Well, they have to pay a fair rate. That's all. It's very simple. They have been charging very, very high tariffs to our farmers. Farmers very badly. They've been treating our country very badly for years. And look, we like Canada. I love Canada. I have so many friends in Canada. But they've been very poorly led.
Despite the pressure, Canada didn't blink. Trump's move may have been designed to trigger panic in Ottawa, but it didn't. Officials stayed the course. No public outburst, no rushed announcement, no last-minute signature. While Mexico's deal is still undefined and its exemptions temporary, Canada is choosing clarity over chaos. Economists from multiple Canadian outlets have pointed out that over 80% of Canadian exports still flow tariff-free under CUSMA. That buys time, and more importantly, it gives leverage.
This guy will say something one day, and he'll wake up, and the cheese slips off the cracker, and then all of a sudden he goes the other way. And you're thinking, how do you deal with a guy like this?
What we saw on August 1st wasn't a rulebook being followed. It was one man's playbook, where deadlines bend, allies are tested, and pressure is personal. Trump gave Mexico more time because it fit his optics. He denied Canada that same time because Ottawa didn't fold. But trade isn't just about theater. And Canada's refusal to rush shows that it understands that. In the end, that calm might prove to be its strongest move yet.
The president announced a deal with South Korea, which of course is a key U.S. trading partner, with just 2 days to spare before the deadline.
Along with the 15% tariffs, South Korea will invest $350 billion for investments owned and controlled by the United States.
2 days before his self-imposed August 1st deadline, Donald Trump made his move. He announced a deal with South Korea, a key trading partner, locking in tariffs at 15%. That headline came fast and loud, timed for maximum political impact. But behind the celebration, serious questions piled up. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick claimed South Korea would invest $350 billion into the U.S., and that 90% of profits would benefit Americans, all at Trump's direction. But no legal framework was shown, no enforcement mechanism explained. It echoed Trump's earlier deal with Japan, where flashy promises of $550 billion in investments were quietly walked back to a fraction of that total. And again, the math didn't add up. Just like with Europe, which recently pledged to buy massive volumes of U.S. energy, there's no clear indication whether these countries need that much, or whether the U.S. can even supply it. The numbers sounded big, but their foundation looked paper-thin. Trump's latest announcement, a deal with South Korea, followed the same pattern as his earlier agreements. While Seoul has confirmed steps toward formalizing the agreement, the details remain thin. There's no binding treaty language, no timeline for implementation, no clear enforcement mechanisms. The claimed 90-10 profit split raised eyebrows, especially since it hasn't been officially documented. Trump's model seems clear: stack huge numbers, broadcast them through friendly media, and create the illusion of control. Fox News even claimed that tariffs brought in $150 billion from foreign countries, when in reality, those tariffs are paid by American companies, often passed on to consumers. It's economic theater. The deals look impressive in headlines, but underneath, companies are quietly warning of layoffs, price hikes, and shrinking earnings. The Federal Reserve has now delayed a rate cut, citing uncertainty from these very tariff actions.
With the Americans are ongoing. It's possible that they may not conclude by the 1st of August.
While Trump crafted his South Korea announcement, Canada's position came into focus, and it wasn't what Washington wanted to hear. Prime Minister Mark Carney confirmed that no deal had been reached with the U.S., and that none is expected by the August 1st deadline. Canada's negotiators remain in Washington, but the message was clear: Ottawa will not rush into a bad agreement. Carney described the talks as complex and constructive, emphasizing areas like defense, security, and investment. But he gave no hint that Canada would follow the same path as Europe or Asia. And unlike Trump's announce first, explain later strategy, Canada chose clarity. No deal until the terms truly benefit Canadians. In less than a week, Trump had sealed back-to-back deals with Europe and South Korea, both promoted with billion-dollar promises and patriotic slogans. But Carney's refusal to sign on, even under the pressure of an artificial deadline, exposed a critical flaw in the president's game plan. Trump bet that all allies would fall in line before August 1st. That strategy worked with Brussels and Seoul. But Canada didn't blink. And now, the contrast is striking. While Trump claims to win big, his negotiating partners, from Japan to Europe to Korea, all quietly dispute the terms. Canada, at least, is saying so publicly. This isn't just about one missed deal. With each flashy but shallow agreement, Trump is creating economic confusion. The uncertainty has already caused the Fed to hold back, while businesses brace for cost shocks. And if Canada continues to resist, the White House may soon respond with steep tariffs, potentially up to 35% on Canadian goods. That would hit cross-border trade hard. And unlike Japan or South Korea, Canada has signaled it won't be bullied into submission. In the final hours before Trump's August 1st deadline, the scoreboard isn't as clean as the headlines suggest. The deals with Europe and South Korea look rushed, vague, and politically tailored. But Canada's delay may prove the most strategic move yet. Carney isn't just negotiating. He's calling out the game. And now, all eyes turn to August 1st.
We had a meeting. I wasn't sure. I said 50-50. I think you probably felt the same thing.
Just 1 hour. That's all it took for the President of the United States to go from calling a trade deal with the European Union a 50-50 chance to walking onto a stage and announcing the biggest trade deal ever made. This pattern isn't new.
I think Canada could be one where they'll just pay tariffs, not really a negotiation.
Days before, Trump used the same tactic with Canada, telling reporters there might be no deal at all and that Ottawa might have to just pay tariffs. Then, almost like clockwork, he flipped the script with Europe, moving from doubt to triumph within hours. It's less about negotiation at the table and more about building suspense for a dramatic reveal. From the outside, this might look like strength, but it's also carefully staged. Much of the real bargaining happens behind closed doors, while the public announcements are crafted to create headlines. For countries like Canada, this raises a critical question. If others are signing just to escape tariffs, should Canada resist this pattern and hold out for something more substantial? What Trump calls a deal is often just a framework, broad outlines without binding details. There are no published timelines, no enforcement mechanisms, and no clear terms on what happens if a partner country fails to deliver on its promises. This ambiguity gives Trump the power to redefine the terms at any moment, even after the handshake and the cameras are gone. It's a political advantage, but it leaves trading partners exposed. For Canada, this is both a warning and an opportunity. Instead of rushing to mimic what Japan or Europe accepted, Ottawa could push for stronger, enforceable terms, a real agreement that won't shift with the president's next press conference.
Well, the bottom line is that the American people are going to be paying a 15% tax on any imports from the world's second largest collective economy, and that's the European Union. That is not a good thing for American consumers.
Behind the showmanship, someone has to pay, and that someone is the American consumer. The 15% tariff on EU imports, announced with great fanfare, applies broadly, with limited exceptions for pharmaceuticals. Steel and aluminum imports still face 50% tariffs. For everything else, the price goes up. Businesses that rely on European parts, machinery, or raw materials now face higher costs, which will inevitably flow down to consumers. Whether it's auto components from Germany or specialty foods from Italy, the checkout price in American stores is climbing. The ripple effects go even further. U.S. small businesses that assemble imported goods or use European inputs in manufacturing will be hit the hardest. Unlike multinationals, they have limited ability to absorb cost increases or reconfigure supply chains. For many, this means slowing hiring, cutting hours, or passing costs directly to customers. In a fragile inflationary environment, these hidden taxes could undercut household budgets and business confidence alike. Meanwhile, the much-hyped benefits, like $600 billion in European investments or $750 billion in energy purchases, are vague and spread over years. There's no guarantee how much of that will create jobs or lower prices for ordinary Americans. In the short term, it's a tax disguised as a trade victory. This is where Canada might find leverage. By aligning with U.S. industries that depend on cross-border trade, such as auto manufacturers in Michigan or food processors in Wisconsin, Canada can highlight how tariffs hurt both economies.
We will, obviously, we're working on behalf of Canadians, and we will agree a deal if there's one on the table that is in the best interest of Canadians, just as the United States will do, and we'll use all the time that's necessary. And agree something that's in the interest of Canadians, if that's available.
The urge to sign a quick deal is understandable. No country wants to face 25% or 35% tariffs. But speed is not the same as substance. Trump's pattern of declaring no deal and then staging a victory is powerful media theater. Yet Canada doesn't have to play along. A slower, more deliberate path could secure terms that truly protect Canadian businesses while avoiding the hollow optics that others have settled for. In trade, as in politics, it's not about who signs first, it's about who walks away with something real.